All right. It is Wednesday. It is 4:30 p.m. Central Time. It's time for office hours. Welcome, everyone. This is where you get a update on what's going on in our little industry, as well as a chance to ask Andrew and I questions on ConfigMgr, Intune, MDT, Azure, PowerShell, courses, weather, trailer time. All right.
That's right.
All right. Glad to be back in the saddle. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. You mentioned the weather. It is fantastic outside today. I'm very excited to get some, was very excited to get some fresh air at lunch and quite the hint of spring. Very happy for that.
Not bad at all.
No.
I have to say, I was a little bit nervous earlier because I was out of internet for a good hour.
Oh,
I was like,
no.
oops. But it came back to its senses, and here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. I'm just hoping my camera will hold up. It's been going off and on and off for most of the day in meetings and whatnot. I personally see that as a good excuse to order a new one. But
I was going to say, usually, between the two of us, there's either a birthday coming up or a Father's Day or a Christmas. There's always something happening that, that might need to make the list.
qualifies for a purchase. All right,
That's right.
I'll ask the manager and see what if I get approval or not. All right.
Well, I'm rooting for you. If you need somebody to, just add a little extra approval in there, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right. So, what's been going on in our little sphere?
Yeah, so came across a couple of cool new things that have landed on the list to try out, the ever-growing list of things to try and play around with, and a couple of not so great things that I figured we could talk about a little bit today. If you'd like to share my screen, though, I can start out with some of the cool community things I've come across.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I can, and I did.
Thank you, sir. That looks good to me. So first thing I came across is this Intune assignments report that utilizes Power BI from Trevor Jones. So we've talked a lot about how we can find out what resources are or what items are assigned to various resources. That's come up, been a topic here on Office Hours a few times in the last couple of months. And Trevor's got a nice way that he put together of actually visualizing this information. So I am looking forward to getting this up in my lab to get a real demo going and see what this visualization looks like. Trevor's always got some great solutions here. So he's had some other Power BI reports that we've utilized in the past, and they've been fantastic. So would encourage you to take a look at this to see if this is something that you want to be reporting on and have a visualization of in your environment. Second thing I came across was from Steve Weiner over at Rubix. Had a short blog post here and some code on how you can bulk update Autopilot group tags across a number of enrollment profiles and devices. So I wanted to share this here as well. There's a couple of snippets of code that you can use to either, here's the first option, change group tag using a list of serial numbers that you might have, or change the group tag using an old group tag as a target. So thinking maybe if you're just changing the group tag or you're renaming something, you have a reorganization or something's happening where you need to change that group tag over, this looked like a pretty cool solution here.
Obviously, not great if you bill by the hour and need a lot of billable hours, but if you want to get the job done quickly, here we are.
Absolutely. Another thing that I came across that looked quite interesting, let me just grab the link for it here, is Meryl Fernando, who has been highlighted many times here on Office Hours. He and Fabian Bader and who's the third person? Thomas Nonheim put together this solution here called Maester. I believe is some may pronounce that Maester, Master. I'm gonna go with Maester. And this is a framework that will help you test things like your conditional access policy to see, or policies, to see that you are following common practices, to see if you have any gaps, and things like that. So I have not had the opportunity to get into this too much because I came across it. I think it was released literally like 6 hours ago, but it looked very cool.
So you had 6 hours. So what's your excuse not for?
I don't have a good one. I really don't. This is one of those things that you see some screenshots of it. And by the way, Meryl always is fantastic with these graphics and screenshots, enough to catch your attention and make you want to drop everything and take the 6 hours to test a new thing that he's talking about. So I don't really have a good excuse.
It could possibly to have a real job to do also.
That could be part of it. But this is absolutely on the list. I hope to talk about it a little bit more here in the near future and see what this can do for us. But it looks very interesting. Last but not least, I came across a couple of not so great things that we wanted to call out, and I know that you've got some pointers on, Johan. The first was that Windows 10 updates earlier this year broke connected cache node discovery on enterprise networks. So if that's happening, if your clients can't discover connected cache, what is your recommendation to fix that in the meantime while we wait for a fix?
Well, luckily it was luckily, but it was only the ACP discovery that broke down, and there are plenty of other options to specify the cache host. So you can do that with an Intune policy, you can do that with a group policy, you can even do that with a PowerShell script that smacks that registry key in for the cache host value. You can use a ConfigMgr baseline, Intune remediation script. If you have our agent, you can use that one too. But long story short, you can at least temporarily populate that value differently until a fix is available.
Good to know.
So not the end of the world.
No, definitely not. As long as we have a workaround, that's at least something we can work with. And the other thing that I came across, I think both of us came across at some point, was last week. I think I mentioned the 23H2 security baseline was released in Intune. And put simply, at the moment, if you are managing non-English operating systems, don't use it. As I understand it, I believe the settings were not, they were using the display name of certain things and not the well-known SID. Is that how you understood the issue?
Yeah, basically they hard-coded in names rather than SIDs, which is a big fat no-no, unfortunately.
Definitely. So Microsoft is aware of the issue. The Intune support team is aware of the issue. So hopefully we'll see a fix for this soon. But the current recommendation is if you are deploying anything other than managing anything other than English operating systems right now, do not assign that baseline. So that was what I had for today. How about you?
Well, I had a few things that I stumbled across. First, something I know that even if you didn't want to be part of this, you were part of this. See if I can share my screen here. Not this one here, that's just a query, but this scenario here where you have a ConfigMgr database that decides to grow and grow and grow and grow very, very quickly. So Rudy put together a blog post because he was in the exact same scenario where it grew 700 gig in a very short time period. So eventually he pulled together a very, very nice blog post published yesterday here. His database was growing 1 gig per minute. So yeah, fairly quickly, I'll say. Anyhow, he found out that all the different maintenance tasks can be called as stored procedures. Probably not supported, but that's how they're being called. So I thought that was pretty cool, worth mentioning. So this blog post, of course, is among the links that we will share.
Yeah, that was not a fun problem to run into by any stretch. So basically, some clients are sending up some Defender logs, and that's what, at least in my case, was filling up that table very, very quickly.
Wasn't that like 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning, something like that? Or
Yes, it was. The clients were sending those things, and the database grew from 70 gigs to about 280 gigs. Not great.
Not great. Literally overnight too. All right, fantastic. Yep. All right. The other one I stumbled across an update was Microsoft themselves, but they have been working on a Windows Update distribution port for a good while. It was showcased in one YouTube video earlier this year, and I'm delighted to see that it's coming apparently in next release of Intune. So that was nice. Now we also had a new release of PowerToys. Version 80 or 0.80 was released. Don't remember the changes on the top of my head, but if you're using PowerToys, yeah, there is a new version. Then I stumbled across a, in my opinion, pretty shiny little tool. It's a executable, including source code, that allow you to run a PowerShell script without that little flashing console. A lot of folks have been using VBScript to do that before, but since VBScript is slowly going away, you can use this instead. And if your security team has any arguments, well, here's the source code. You can review it to your heart's content, and then we can use it. So apparently, we're still waiting for get it properly signed because this signature had expired, or cert has expired. But anyhow. Another thing I stumbled across, of course, was that the call for sessions for MMS Flamingo has opened. Most of you probably noticed that the one in Minneapolis is sold out, which is fantastic. And I'm really honored, of course, that they decided to have my birthday as the deadline for submissions.
Oh.
So that is, of course, cool. And something that I just stumbled across and made me chuckle a bit and also almost cry a little bit at the same time, but it was this one here.
I laughed out loud when I saw you retweet this, by the way.
So this was the very, not the first, but one of the very first ransomware attacks I was involved in, fixing up after the fact or rebuilding the infrastructure. This happened to them. Luckily, not all of the backups, but they had 2 backup servers. One Microsoft and one third party. They had encrypted both of them first before they encrypted everything else. So there was a poor guy that stood in the data center for 5 days, shuffling tape drive after tape drive after tape drive to rebuild all those indexes, because the indexes were on those servers too.
I can understand why this is only partially humorous to you then. There's a little bit of trauma behind this meme.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see. On the more fun part is, of course, that in 2025, it seems that we're getting a new PCI Express standard. I read an article about PCI Express number 7 or version 7 coming up, which is funny because we haven't even received version 5 yet. So anyhow, the future looks promising. Shuffle around 500 gig per second.
And just to make sure that I'm reading that correctly, that is a large B in GB, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That is fast.
That's a lot of data.
Yeah.
The trick is going to be finding hard drives that keep up with delivering that.
Absolutely.
All right. And then we have this one here. Makes me very happy, or made me very happy. Stefan released a PowerShell module that will take WinGet apps and publish them to Win32 apps in Intune. So the question is, why is this extra shiny? Well, because WinGet by nature doesn't support peering, but Win32 apps does. So instead of having 4,000 clients downloading the same content from the same server, a few of them can download it and they can share locally, which is much, much quicker. And speaking of that, you mentioned delivery optimization earlier. We have spotted lately that we're starting to see a little bit of a lower peering quality across a lot of different customers organizations. Haven't quite figured out yet why that is, but something I wanted to at least mentioning. Don't be too surprised if you start to see a little bit less peering, a little bit more non-peering. But as soon as I have more information to share, I will. And I stole this query, borrowed. He sent it to me from Maurice to tap into some of the log analytics data from the past month on one of the tenants here.
All right.
So, anyhow. And of course, finally, we have this one here. Panu tweeted about the new version of the snipping tool. He was very excited about the new drawing options. He was less excited about the ruler being missing. Apparently, he was using that one a lot. So he was encouraged by Jen to put in a feedback item on it, which he did. So hopefully, we'll get the ruler back without the expense of anything else.
Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. So that was all I had in terms of news.
All right. Well, then I suppose we should check to see which questions we have. Let's see. So we've got a few people joining us today with some hellos. Hello, everybody. Good to see everyone. So we've got a question from Siva over on YouTube. Updating the drivers for the PC is necessary before performing the Windows 10 22H2 to Windows 11 23H2 in-place upgrade using Windows servicing? Or are the updating the drivers before performing that in-place upgrade necessary?
It depends.
Of course.
And I actually had some notes here on that topic because I was presenting a class earlier, deployment class, and we discussed it. But basically, when you do servicing of any Windows version from any to any, your machines are going to fall into one of four scenarios. Scenario one, you're lucky you don't have to do anything. Scenario two, you may have to update drivers prior to the upgrade. There are features in Windows that may require certain type of drivers. The most common scenario, though, is this one here, that you simply ask setup to, hey, you know what, go ahead and include drivers during upgrade. It has a built-in option for it. And a super rare scenario here, marked as blue, is to have to remove drivers. This is only if you have an incompatible driver where you want Windows to pick up the inbox driver instead. In general, this is the safe option. If you don't really want to test out every single model to figure out which one that needs what scenario, number 3 here is a pretty safe bet. If the vendor has a driver package, tell setup to use it during imaging or during the upgrade. And there's that. Otherwise, you'll have to test. It's not like you can go to a vendor web page and say, hey, I'm going from this version of Windows to this version of Windows. I have these 12 models. Which driver package do I need? Or which models do I not need a driver package for? So, long story short, that's the answer to that one. It depends.
All right. Good, as I've learned, a good consulting answer, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Siva is also asking about, have we heard about vulnerability CVE 2023-24932, which I believe are the boot manager revocations and secure boot changes. I think if that's the same one that I'm thinking of, I think that might be the one that you have done a little bit of research on, Johan.
Yeah, well, I was closely involved, but it was Gary and Mike that did most of the bulk work on that one.
Okay.
We can see if we can find that post from Gary. We have referenced it a few times here in office hours. I just need to borrow that CVE because I haven't quite learned to memorize them all yet. It's on my to-do list. I know.
I can't believe it.
But long story short, you need to patch your boot images. And there are some script examples here on how to do it. Eventually, it will be forced. And we have seen issues all over this year, patches that are related to this not being able to be installed because of the lack of recovery space, basically. So we have our friend Martin Heimken. We showcased his content a few times. Heimken. I hope I spell it correctly. GitHub Winari. Yeah, this one. No, the other one. No, this was the one. Winari. Patched last week. This is a script that makes sure your recovery partitions have enough disk space to be able to apply the patch. So Microsoft has a script version as well. I've only been using this one, but there is one that is linked as well. Shorthand version, you need to have 250 meg free disk space on your recovery volume. Otherwise, the patch will not be able to apply. And a lot of systems don't have that. Mm-hmm. Some systems don't have one at all, but the ones that do, that's usually too small.
And even sometimes you don't have it in the right location, or have the partition in the right location.
Yeah, making it a little bit harder to move and get around, but it's doable.
Yep.
It's a very good PowerShell script, this one. So, yep, that should answer that question.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mm-hmm. Matt is joining us asking, he's got a client that Active Directory has 3,000 devices, while SCCM still has 5,000 devices. The maintenance tasks to delete them never fixes the issue. What can I do to match the numbers between AD and ConfigMgr?
Well, if the native cleanup task doesn't cut it, might indicate some other issues. The main thing to check is obviously that you are not continuing to getting junk from AD into ConfigMgr. So on the discovery objects, you have indeed the option here of saying that I only want to have devices that has been logged on past 3 months or have been updating the password for the past 3 months. Otherwise, you will get, even if you remove an object, it tends to come back later. But other than that, it might be to have to do a scripted removal of objects that exist. But this is also one of those, it depends. This is something I have to be reviewed, because the maintenance tasks that you have here that we talked about earlier as well, they do have the option of cleaning out earlier discovery data, etc., from devices. Basically, there is no yes or no answer to that one, I'm afraid.
All right. Dan joining us, very excited about the ability to do squares in the new version of Snipping Tool. I just have to agree with that. It's very exciting.
Also related to this release here,
Yep,
also square option, okay.
I'll take that. Squares and arrows, anything that makes it easier to draw those things, or faster, I should say. Matt's asking anything to spotlight about Patch Tuesday from yesterday. Have you come across anything yet?
Nothing yet, other than there was a bunch of them, like 160 some patches. But I know who to turn to. We have our friends over at Patch My PC. They did their Patch Tuesday support group earlier this morning. They haven't published the recording yet, I think. But they do that on their YouTube channel shortly after their release. So let's see what we have here. Nothing there. No, it haven't yet been published, but I expect it to show up here shortly. Because this one, obviously, from last month was published 3 weeks ago, which gives me maybe a week after there. But I highly recommend to join them when you have the chance. That hat is not bad either. That's some serious commitment.
I agree. Good group of folks doing those, though.
Yeah, indeed. So, would recommend that.
Absolutely. Amir's got a comment and question here. We have around 7,000 Windows 10 devices that need to be upgraded to Windows 11 through Windows servicing. The help desk does not want to do more than 70 devices per week to keep the possible support calls under control. I think that would make the process to run into the Windows 12 release. Yeah, that sounds. I don't have the calculator right in front of me or the Windows 12 release date, but that would take some time.
That was one thing we learned in Redmond a few weeks back when we visited Microsoft. There is no such thing as Windows 12 planned at this point in time.
Yeah,
not even like a hint of it. So we're going to be stuck with Windows 11 for a bit. But if we're talking about, so basically 70 a day and you have 7,000, that's 100 weeks. That's 2 years. And Windows 11 goes out of support, Windows 10, 22, H2, Enterprise. End of life is October, right?
Yes.
Yeah, October 14.
78 weeks.
Yeah, you're coming up a year short, give or take, or 8 months short. So that means that you will have to pay for updates for about a year until you can patch those last 3,500 some devices. So if you're willing to pay $61 per device, times 3,000. Or was it 64? Let's say 60. They got a discount. $200,000.
A little pricey. Probably a little more pricey than the possible support calls that would show up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there is also this possibility to, do it right.
That's right.
To deploy it in such a way so you don't have the default 10% failures and you rather have to deal with the 2% failures.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can probably deploy 5 times as many a day or a week, whatever there was. So instead of 70 per week, you're doing 350 per week. We'll get you done by Christmas.
That's right. And I think so. Amir did ask as well if we had any guidance really on cadence in such a scenario. I think, if I know you well enough, sir, that your answer is it depends.
It depends, but based on best practices from the customers that I've worked with,
Mm-hmm.
and we recommend no more than 20,000 per day, because it gets harder after that. That's the largest number I've seen so far.
And went fairly smoothly.
Well, when you have that many clients to upgrade every day, you kind of spend a long time doing this particular piece here, because every fraction of a percent you can make it better, it actually a lot of devices. If you would go with the default failure rates, 10% out of 20,000 a day, that's 2,000 failing.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So anything you can do to make it better. And I know this particular organization, they didn't just have a phased approach, validation and upgrade and whatnot. They had multiple of them. Because again, everything you could do to make it better is good. What I don't like about the servicing plans themselves is that by default, they don't have a lot of control mechanisms. But with a little healthy help from the community and people like Adam and others, you can make that behavior better. It's not as good as sequences, but it can be pretty good. And Adam's organization, for example, this is how they decided to do the rollout. Other options, we do have trainings on the topic here on the Academy, paid ones as well as free ones. Let's see where I put the Windows 11 one. Should be here somewhere. Yeah. Hour and a half on notes from the field. So.
Excellent.
That would be that one. Price is just right too.
I agree.
If you cannot get this through the budget.
Yeah. You got some challenges, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So Siva was just following up here on the Patch My PC reviews on Thursday. He joins that webinar monthly. Recommend that to anybody that's doing patching. At least 500 people show up.
Yeah, I really wanted to watch. I agree. It's a great show. I really wanted to join them today, but I was also presenting at the same time. So it's just kind of rude if the instructor doesn't show up for the
Yeah.
I know what we should do if it happens again. We should have a mandatory watch window where we all watch the support group.
There you go.
Wish I thought about that this morning, but
Excellent. So Dan's just got a comment about ESU pricing. The education space has really good ESU pricing, the extended updates, but makes it harder to get people to upgrade. They'll just pay for ESU. Don't tell everyone that, Dan. Just let everyone. We need to upgrade to Windows 11 and just be done with it. But good comment. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair and square, especially educational organization. They often keep hardware around for a little bit longer than others.
Yes.
And if you have a fully functional device, it kind of feels like a waste. Just throw it away. If you can make it live a little longer by applying a patch, all right, done.
Yeah, definitely. And you do have, in the education space, you run into some of the same types of problems that you might run into in, say, industrial or manufacturing or something like that, where you have a device that's hooked to some specialized equipment, and for whatever reason, whether it's the vendor doesn't support it or it's just too difficult to upgrade it, you have to stay on a version of Windows.
Yeah.
That definitely comes up as well.
Indeed.
So, all right. Matt's got a question here on driver servicing in Intune. Should you target all devices or group them by model for driver updates via Intune? Also, how can you create device groups based on models in Intune?
That answer is one of those lovely not depends. I'm gonna fight on this hill until the day until later. Driver updates. I no matter what platform you use, MDT, PSD, ConfigMgr, Intune, I do not care. I recommend sticking with the total control freak method. OS family, and in this case, the models.
I agree, and maybe I'm a little biased because I've just followed you on this topic for so many years, but this allows you to have a better understanding of what's happening in your environment. It allows you to troubleshoot better. It allows you to have more control, like you're saying, on that per model basis. So I don't have much to add except yes, I agree.
Yeah, thank you. So per model and manual approval. That's my firm recommendation, and there will be a few things that can talk me out of it.
Yep.
We saw last year what happens when you put them all into the same bucket, and then you have a vendor, won't even mention any name, but Real Tech decided to release a driver that A, didn't work, 2, overwrote whatever type of filter that was on it. So a lot of devices got it and didn't have a functional network after the fact. Kind of hard to fix those devices.
I would think so, yes.
This is where you whip out a floppy and run. So that's my take on it. Humble as it isn't this, isn't it? It's not. It's not humble at all.
That's right. But that's it's important, and you have experience. So I would recommend to everybody else, listen to Johan. Matt's second question here on how to create device groups. Sasan wrote a script about that last year.
Oh yeah. I saw you share that one. Let me. I promise I was trying to copy the link. Yeah, this is a nice PowerShell script that allows you to create them fully automatically based on the models that you do have. If you only have 6 models, like I have in my lab tenant, well, can just go ahead and create them. But yeah, PowerShell is nice.
And this one's super easy to customize and run. I mean, if you look back to our office hours, probably from July of last year, I think I demoed this not long after it came out. So, very nice script. Yeah. All right. So we've got a question from David over on LinkedIn. I have a question regarding Azure Virtual Desktop, using this as a terminal server for clients, and the AVD servers are in a different country. When the users search, they get results from the country the server is in. Do we have any Intune configuration to fix this issue? For example, maybe turning on location settings and turning on pass-through to location to the browser for selected trusted sites. Any links or recommendations on how to approach this problem?
I haven't the foggiest. I don't know.
No, and unfortunately, I mean, when it comes to localizations and regions, I would probably call you first before before trying to figure it out. So unfortunately, I don't have anything to add either. But if anybody else does here in the chat, you've come across that that challenge, please feel free to share.
Yeah, I mean, I can skim through this 780-page book that I bought recently from Christian Brinkhoff and Per Larsen. It has a lot of AVD stuff in it. I just haven't gone through reading it all yet. But I would reach out to Per Larsen or Don Orion or Christian Brinkhoff. They are all active on the Twitter community. Don't know about LinkedIn there, but I've seen them on Twitter. So ask one of those.
All right.
And the book is probably a good read too.
Yeah.
I can't really get a fair review yet because I read like 30 pages. And about 15 of them was an introduction or forewords, and you know.
Well, the first volume was good, so.
Oh, there you go.
Optimistic about this one as well.
Yeah. Mastering Microsoft Intune. That would be the one. This must be the first edition because mine says second edition in it.
Yeah, I think
there
if you go.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
That's the one. Highly recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Matt's got a question about LAPS. Almost all organizations are now using LAPS, or Local Administrator Password Solution, causing issues for the help desk typing it repeatedly. How can it be made available to copy and paste on the admin security pop-up window? So basically, if I understand the question, trying to run something as admin, maybe in a remote session or something like that, and you have the UAC prompt that's asking for the admin username and password. I don't know if anybody else has any clever ideas, but I'm pretty certain that you cannot paste there. I usually just grumble about it while I stare at my password manager or my LAPS password and type it in.
I mean, I have seen a few PowerShell scripts that actually does the typing on the keyboard.
Okay.
So maybe something like that. See if we can find something real quick. PowerShell type keyboard password. There's a good old example with VB script in PowerShell. I like that. Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise Matt was just following up. That was the question. They're tired from typing it 20 times. I agree. That's why I say I usually just sit here and grumble to myself, because it is, uh, from an efficiency standpoint, um, not a fantastic experience. But as I understand it, that is working by that's by design from a security standpoint. At least that's what Microsoft uh, indicates, I believe.
No idea if this worked or not, but no, I did not. May have to activate a specific window. I did have a script that did this at one point. Anyhow. I wonder where I saved that. One of our customers I have to do it for. They had an app that didn't allow pasting either, and I got tired of it.
I know. I love the fact that I have no clue what most of my passwords are anymore when I'm using a browser, and I can just allow my password manager to type it in for me. But when you have to type in some long string of random characters, that's not my idea of a good time.
So let me see if I can find close this one here. Let's do a test. How hard can it be? Maybe I shouldn't do this live. If anyone happen to have an example, feel free to. I got it to work.
Oh, nice.
I was so close. I'm borrowing back the other example. So I have a script that activates the notepad window, sleeps for a second, and then sends in the password. So
Do that.
So maybe that. I don't know.
Awesome. And Dan is suggesting in the chat. I don't know if this may not apply to you, Matt, but Dan's suggesting in the chat that BombGar, now beyond trust remote support, will let you paste in as an admin since it's running a system if you're using their jump client. So there's another potential solution.
Yeah, I know ConnectWise has the same. I like their backstage option that they have. It'll allow you to interact with systems without even being bothering the user. It's like a separate session.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. We've got about 9 minutes left, so I want to make sure we've got answer a couple of other questions that we've got in here. Amir says, we're imaging Windows 11 laptops with MDT and using a provisioning package and BRPT, the bulk enrollment tokens, to join the device to Azure AD during a task sequence. The operating system comes up not activated and stays that way until an E5 user logs into it. To keep the activation watermark away from technicians' site while they're prepping the device, decided to use the KMS key in unattend.xml file, but that downgrades the OS from Enterprise to Pro. Do you have any better suggestions for handling this?
I'm curious to why it will downgrade it to Pro just because you use a KMS key. I know there is a registry key that you can use for shared devices where you want to have them activated by the KMS so that the subscription activate and license doesn't downgrade it later, or when you log in as someone who is not having a license for it. I know you and Jürgen talked a little bit about that in your Windows 11 session.
Yes. Let me see if I've got the info on that. Well, I know I do. It's just a matter of pulling it up. Yeah, I'm trying to rack my brain too on a downgrade. Why it would downgrade from a KMS key? Because you have the KMS key itself should be for Enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, you can even use the public keys and force it into using one of those.
Yep.
The problem we usually see is that you have a machine that's been activated by someone who has a license, and then someone else who doesn't have a license logs in, and that causes a downgrade. And there's a registry key you can provide that prevent that from happening.
You know what? I think that is in a different.
Could that be his troubleshooting session?
Yes, it is.
Okay, then you need to go to MMS and watch Jürgen's troubleshooting session. Or attend our training. That's also an option.
Yes. Yeah, did he blog about that at all? I don't know that he did.
I don't know. I do not know.
No, I'm not finding anything.
Yep, sorry about that one.
Yep. Oh yeah, I didn't think Dan was asking what the built-in OS is in the firmware. I guess that could have something to do with it. I've not come across that.
Like using an OEM image or something like that.
Yeah.
Or if it's a home edition, yeah. Home can only upgrade to Pro, and then you have to upgrade to Pro to Enterprise.
And so if you have that OEM, if you have a home key, basically in BIOS, it will cause that.
I don't know, possibly.
Yeah,
there was a comment there. They come with Pro, and they're on OEM license. Yeah, it could be that it goes back to that one. I mean, that is probably a support call or something. I don't, unless someone else has an idea. And thank you all the folks that are sharing in a discussion here in the chat. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Oh, I did miss a question down here, I think.
How rude.
I know, it is. So that's why we're going back. This is coming in from YouTube. Recently, devices deployed via Autopilot have the system account as the logged in user for the default device compliance policy. Any ideas?
Where on earth did you see that question?
That is after Matt's question about drivers. No, after Matt's question about laps.
Ah, I see it. Uh,
Let's see.
I mean, I have seen compliance being reported twice, both for the device as well as the user. That is not entirely new.
Yeah, and I think just looking at I have an Autopilot device from last year that's showing that. Let's see if I have any recent ones. Is this one it?
I mean, I can basically, if I go here, is my screen still showing?
Yeah, yep.
If I scoot over to devices and compliance policies, pick one of the policies and hit the report here. It will show up as occasionally as the system account here. And these are machines that are like active there online. Well, they were until 3 hours ago at least.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little internet outage and I decided to save them. But as to why they sometimes show like this, I do not know. But this is something I've seen for years. So I don't even think about it.
Yeah, so just confirming the same on my end, even diving into some of the individual computer objects. It's showing the same.
Yeah. So we think it's by design, but we are not sure. That's the verbatim, the non-scientific answer. Amir had a tip on assigning policies to all users instead of all devices. Fix it for them. Something to try, of course.
Indeed.
All right.
I think we got everybody now.
Yeah, we are also up on time. Perfect timing.
How quickly it goes.
Yeah, it's crazy. But as usual, whoops, I did not mean to do that. Thank you everyone for joining us, asking questions and commenting, helping, and thank you, Andrew, for being here with me. And I wish you a fantastic week, everyone.
Likewise, thank you, Johan, and thank you everybody else for joining. Have a great week.
All right, here is outro. Boom.